This is my left foot. If you can't see it back there, you can stand up. I want you to know this is my left foot, and it's not necessarily an overly handsome foot, but it serves me well. There are things about it. You can move back a seat if you want.
Just stay seated in the back.
If this is your first visit here, please let me talk with you after the service. There are things about it that are an illusion, and I'd like to tell you its story. This summer, about middle of the summer, I woke up one morning and my left foot ached. I mean, it hurt. It was painful. It was bad. But if you know me at all, you know that I like to lead an active life on every level, and I like to exercise at least 6 days a week. And so for the next several days, the next 3 days, I ran, even with the pain. Now, I am not a masochist. I want you to know that. I do not enjoy pain. But I thought, okay, maybe I can run through it. That's a possibility. So for 3 days I tried. And then it was simply too much. And like any reasonable person, as I think of myself, I stopped that. And I thought, okay, I'll rest it. And so I got my cardio exercise for the next month on an elliptical machine. There was no real contact. It didn't really aggravate the foot. All right? But at the end of that month of using that method of exercise, my foot was still in pain. And so like a reasonable person, community person, I went to the doctor. Because God is in everything, right? Doctors as well. So I went to my doctor. And he, now I want you to know that I have the utmost respect for my doctor. As a matter of undeniable fact, when I was 32 years of age, he saved my life. He diagnosed an appendicitis attack that I was going through that for the previous 3 days other doctors misdiagnosed. So I just want you to know the affinity I have for this individual. Well, he examines my foot and he says, you have plantar fasciitis. It's an inflammation of the connective tissue in the bottom of the foot. And I can give you a shot of cortisone. Well, there is nothing wrong per se with that treatment. My inner voice said, cortisone. That doesn't address the cause of the problem. And then I heard my outer voice saying, doctor, I don't think that addresses the real cause of the problem. And my doctor just looked at me. And after this pregnant pause of not knowing what to say, he said, well, it's worked very well for many people, some for years. And I said, I think I will delay the cortisone injection. Something inside of me directed me to that decision at that time. The next week, I was talking with a dear friend of mine who is a licensed massage therapist. And I told her about my foot. And she said, I believe you should go see Dennis Gibbons. He is a master massage therapist. I'd never heard her use that word. We talked about many massage therapists. Never heard her use the word master before. And I said, I will. And when I first met Dennis in his healing center, not far from here on Chagrin Boulevard, just off Chagrin Boulevard, he walks into the room. He's a very tall, gregarious, direct man. And in his presence, I felt the full focus of his attention. And I told him the problems I had with my foot. I explained my doctor's diagnosis. He took it all in. He said, all right, take off your shoes, lie down on the treatment table. And he began to work on me. He first was working on my spine, because my spine was out of alignment. How did I know that? I could sense, even walking into his office, that one shoulder was higher than the other. And so I felt the shoulder, even lying down, I could feel the shoulder relax. And then he began to work on my hamstrings and my calf muscles. And our time was up at that point. He said, stand up. And I stood up and he said, how does it feel to have arches? And for the first time in at least 51 years, my flat feet now had arches. I had never felt what arches felt like before. I mean, I knew what they looked like. I'd seen them in other people in pictures, but I never felt them. And he said, your brain knew what to do. We simply needed to let it, to provide the space for it. See, what he does is, it's not magic. He uses a technique called muscle release therapy. And he goes to the body releasing frozen muscle tissue. And our bodies know their proper alignment. That's always within us, and it's always working. We are always in a condition to come into the realization of the healed and whole people that we always are. Well, he said, okay, he said, I'd like you to come back in 2 weeks. He said, if this is plantar fasciitis, you'll be good to go. Well, in the next 2 weeks, I felt improvement, but the pain was still there. So I came back in, and I said, I don't think it is plantar fasciitis. And he shook his head no. And he looked me in the eye. And he said, there is nothing wrong with your foot. While the pain that I was experiencing, I felt in my foot, the source of that pain was not there. It didn't originate in my foot. There was nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with my foot. And I had the realization at that moment that so often in my life, either the pain that I feel or the pain that I react to or the expression of fear that I'm going through, it doesn't really have anything to do with the real source of my pain. That's elsewhere. And so he began to do some more work on my hips, and especially on my cervical spine and the neck, which he had found was quite flat. And he restored the curvature there. And I began to experience real healing in the foot by releasing muscles frozen in the neck. Now, Dennis Gibbons is a master of anatomy and physiology. He has studied it extensively. He didn't just get out of bed one morning and say, I'm going to start releasing muscles. He really knows his stuff. But here's something that I learned about him in the course of our sessions together, because I'm a curious sort. I ask lots of questions, especially when it comes to my being. And what I learned is this: he doesn't just tell you this, but he's free to share it when asked. When he walks into the room and he meets a client for the first time, he does not know what to do. He doesn't know. He seeks the guidance of Spirit. He listens, and he receives it. And Spirit guides where his hands go and what his hands do. And it was a rediscovery that I continually have of a truth in my life, an ongoing truth, that my deepest personal healing is always initiated by, guided by, and bestowed by Spirit. By Spirit. Reverend Scott Sherman has dedicated his life to healing. He has focused that dedication in the last decade to hands-on healing, the kind of healing processes that Myrtle Fillmore experienced and that gave rise to the Unity movement that brought us here to this moment and this day. It was the realization of our healed nature. We are always whole. Reverend Scott Sherman is here to allow us to know our wholeness on an even deeper level